I'm a little defeated. I shouldn't say I'm a little defeated. I'm actually, how can I say I'm defeated when you get that video right start off the bat? So obviously the second monitor, I guess the first monitor, you're going left to right, and whatever. So the busted monitor chassis is actually functioning. The video that you saw is actually a recreation of my first run through after doing a whole lot of diagnosis to finally get it to that point. And all that video was on my network storage drive. It's this guy back here. It's my storage box. It's got two 6-terabyte drives and a RAID 1 setup. When I set up what I call the scratch drive, so I went ahead and I used that not only as a scratch but also as basically storage for all my raw footage, so I don't fill up my main desktop, which is underneath my desk here. And I was busy recording today. I was actually working on the monitor chassis itself. I went ahead and I did a cap kit. And so I ran out of footage. I ran out of space. And so I hooked up my camera to my computer, started transferring files, and it was like 60 gigs of files to transfer. And so this thing's relatively slow. It's not really that new. And it took about an hour to transfer. So in a rush, because I wanted to try this out today, I did two things. I finished my, I guess, quote-unquote, final relocation of the HDT, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but I also wanted to get my cap kit finished. And in that process, I typically delete the files off the camera from my computer and just move on. Except I deleted all the raw footage off of my server and didn't delete any of the files off of the camera.
Fatality.
Now, typically, it wouldn't be a big issue. I've got a server, right? It should be set up that I have some kind of backup, some kind of snapshot. Well, I thought I did. I didn't, which is unfortunate because after about an hour worth of troubleshooting, making the attempt to see if I could recover any of that footage, I couldn't. So you lost. You saw it in the previous video of me dancing because I was working on doing a light bulb test. And so I do have some footage of me doing that again today, and so I can explain that a little bit more. But you lost that. You lost me going through and basically diagnosing all the issues that chassis had. It had a bad voltage regulator. It had a bad HDT. I don't want to say bad because it functioned. It just didn't test very well, so I'm going to call it bad. It had a bad hot horizontal output transistor. And in this case, all of the basically pads and some of the traces from the HDT or the horizontal drive transistor were so bad that I had to relocate that. The struggle was finding parts because it is so old. I did find some modern equivalent from the company NTE, and so I'll talk more about them later. But so the voltage regulator is basically a new component, and I have two of them just in case I got to replace any other board. I also found some modern equivalents for the HDT. I couldn't find anything that I was confident in the hot though, the horizontal output transistor, because that was dead too. So I got two used units off of, I believe I got them off of eBay. It might have, no, you know what? It was actually a source that I found from a company outside of Florida. And so both of them tested in okay range. One was not as good as the other, so I put the best one in the chassis itself. And so my first test, after adjusting V+ voltage, everything was good. The monitor turned on, but I got a horrific electrical whine, which initially I had said, hey, it's probably the capacitor, specifically the main filter capacitor. It's big. It's about the size, diameter-wise, of it's between $0.50 and $0.25, and probably a good inch tall. And so I did that today with my cap kit, and I'll go more into that later. And the whine was initially there, and then once the monitor warmed up, everything was good to go. And it was interesting because the whine was not the same type of whine. It was not the same frequency. It scared me because I thought maybe, man, is this, is the flyback going bad? It wasn't the flyback, luckily. So I didn't have to really worry about that. But I had it running for about 45 minutes, and for the last 25 minutes there was no whine. I tried to do some different things. I let it run into tracked mode. I went ahead and I played through the game on the unit that actually has a steering wheel and a shifter that kind of works, and let that kind of do its own thing, and no whine came back. I guess we'll see what happens if it's a permanent fix. There are a couple capacitors that I still need to swap out. There's 2 breakout boards that are soldered that I have to unsolder to then desolder the capacitors off there. But they're like 4 points. No, they're 40s. They're really small voltage, really small microfarad capacitors. So I think there's 6 in total. Then there's one capacitor that was it wasn't polarized, and all I had was a polarized capacitor put in its place, and I didn't want to do that, so I went ahead and I just put it back in, and I'm going to have to buy a replacement on its own. Anyway, a lot of technical jargon. I really do apologize. I don't have any really good footage, so what I'll do is you'll kind of get a little bit of the rundown of me doing the cap kit. You'll see some odds and ends with me working with the monitor, and for the most part, you'll have a voiceover at times of me kind of explaining everything. But anyway, without further ado, I'm going to kind of get into it. So I hope you enjoy the video. And again, I'll see you. And I apologize. I really do. I felt like such a moron when I did it. So anyway, enjoy the limited footage I have. Won't happen again, probably. Okay, so we've got the chassis back off, and it's up here in my work area. And so what we're going to do is start to replace caps. This is a cap kit. This is from Arcade Parts and Repair. I believe this is 36 caps. I've also got the main filter cap, which I bought from Mouser. I mean, this thing's huge. Look at this. I mean, it's gigantic. This is the 180 volt, I think 1000 microfarad. Yes, that's this one. And then I've also got the two 160 volt 100 microfarad that go next to it. So I'm going to go through and basically desolder things one at a time and go from there. I like desolder, resolder, desolder, resolder. That's going to basically be my goal because I don't want to screw anything up. I've also got to go ahead and finish up my HDT relocation circuit. You'll notice this is a new one. Okay, so we're going to go ahead. This is at least part of my start. I'm going to try to make this a little nicer. And then this is ultimately going to get double-sided stick taped here so we don't have to worry about much of anything. So without further ado, let's go ahead and let's get to it. what's interesting is a lot of these seem to be snap-in capacitors, which again I showed you earlier. They're definitely they're nice because they kind of keep everything in kind of like where you need to go. But it's just weird. Those are more expensive actually from mine, or at least what I found. So at least we know they're not cheaping out. And again, I guess if you're working with Martin Marietta, there's spending millions upon millions of dollars. I guess you don't need to worry about cheaping out. All right, so we're back downstairs. I have my makeshift test bench set up. I know my fat ass is kind of in the way to see this. But so I have the chassis here. The only thing I have hooked up to it is the main power that's going to come through. I actually have everything else turned off at this point. The working unit won't turn on. Nothing as far as the electronics will turn on. All I'm going to get is straight 100 volts from the transformer to the chassis itself. Now right away nothing's going to happen because I have a lead. I have to go to my my main filter capacitor to go ahead and go on light bulb to turn on. But at that point, then I can kind of see where I'm at voltage-wise. If I'm at 94 volts, then everything's good, and I can go ahead and I can reconnect everything. If I go to connect that and we get some bad noises or some smoke, my cap kit definitely went bad, which sucks because this was working prior. I know there isn't a ton of footage of that because I lost it, but trust me, it was working. So I'm going to make sure I get 94 volts. If I get 94 volts or around there, like 94.1, 94.2, 93.9, I'm going to be pretty good with that. I'm going to go ahead and just get everything connected and see where it goes from there. So let's give this a shot. Let's hope I don't electrocute myself. Let's hope nothing, catches on fire or nothing smokes, whatever it is, what it is. So first things first. Okay. All right, I get fans. It means I got AC. I'm getting 94.2. All right, so 94 exactly. I got it adjusted. Let's go ahead. Let's get everything connected, and let's give this a shot. All right, so I've double and triple checked everything. We're going to go ahead. We're going to hit the power switch. We're going to go ahead and see if we get power again to our monitor. Let's hope that the whine goes away. If the whine doesn't go away, what I'm afraid is it's potentially the capacitor that's built into the flyback transformer. There's no way to change that. Or that's what I've been told. It's so hard to find information on the MS8-29s because most of it, again, these are import Japanese units, so like even people I've talked to, I have the MS8-26s, they're similar, they're not the same. So regardless, I think that we're good to go. We're going to hit the power switch and we're going to see what happens. So fingers crossed, let's do it. All right, so I got a static sound from both sides. Got sound. Okay, so this is still set to single. There we go. Okay. Oh. That whine started again.